You're sitting across from someone right now. Maybe it's your boss. Maybe it's your partner. Maybe it's your mum on the phone asking if you've eaten today, and you say yes even though the answer is technically a bag of crisps at 11 p.m. You lied. Not a big lie. Not a dramatic, burn the house down lie. Just a small, smooth, socially functional lie that you produced without even really thinking about it. It came out of your mouth fully formed, delivered with eye contact, zero hesitation. And here's the thing. You've been doing that your entire life. We all have. Humans lie constantly. Studies suggest the average person tells somewhere between 1 and 2 lies every single day. Some researchers think it higher. Some people are clearly dragging that average up significantly. But here's the question nobody ever actually asks. When did that start? Not when did you start lying, probably around age 3, we'll get to that. But when did humans as a species first figure out that you could say something that wasn't true and get away with it? When did the first lie happen? Who told it? Why? And what did it cost them? Because lying isn't just a bad habit. It might be one of the most sophisticated things the human brain has ever learned to do. And the story of how we got here is genuinely one of the strangest chapters in the entire history of our species. Let's start with something that sounds obvious but is actually not obvious at all. What does it take to lie? Not physically. Obviously, you just open your mouth and produce false words. Easy. Any politician can demonstrate this. What I mean is cognitively. What has to be happening inside your brain for a lie to even be possible? First, you need to understand the truth. You have to know what actually happened or what is actually real. Second, you need to understand that other people have minds. That they have beliefs. That their beliefs can be different from yours. That what's inside their head is not automatically the same as what's inside yours. Psychologists call this theory of mind, the ability to model another person's mental state. To think, he thinks X, but I know X is wrong, and I can make him continue to think X by saying Y. That is not simple. That is a deeply layered cognitive operation that requires you to hold your own knowledge, someone else's belief, and the gap between them all in your head simultaneously while producing a convincing alternative version of reality in real time. Third, you need impulse control, the ability to suppress the true thing and output the false thing instead, without flinching, without the micro-expressions that give liars away, ideally without sweating, though that one's harder. And fourth, you need to understand consequences. To model what happens if they believe you versus what happens if they don't. To run that calculation fast enough to make a decision in the middle of a conversation. Lying, when you actually break it down, is one of the most computationally expensive things a brain can do. It requires theory of mind, working memory, impulse control, and consequence modeling all running in parallel, in real time, under social pressure. Which means before you can ask when humans started lying, you have to ask when human brains became capable of all of that at once. And the answer to that question is far more recent than you'd expect. Here's a thing that will make you feel slightly better about yourself. Humans aren't the only animals that deceive. Deception in the broad sense, producing false signals to manipulate another creature's behavior, is absolutely everywhere in nature. And it's been happening for hundreds of millions of years. The orchid mantis. It looks exactly like a flower. Not metaphorically, not approximately. It looks like a flower so convincingly that actual bees land on it looking for nectar. Then it eats the bees. That is deception. It's not cognitive. The mantis has no idea it's lying, but functionally it is running a con on the entire bee population of its ecosystem, and it has been doing so very successfully for a very long time. The fork-tailed drongo. A bird in southern Africa that has figured out something genuinely remarkable. When a meerkat or another animal finds food, the drongo will sometimes fly overhead and produce an alarm call. A predator, the alarm says, "Run." The meerkat runs. The drongo lands and steals the food. But here's the part that should genuinely disturb you. If the drongo uses the same alarm call too many times, the meerkats stop responding. They learn the pattern. So the drongo switches to a different alarm call. It mimics the alarm calls of other species. It cycles through its repertoire until it finds one the meerkat hasn't learned to ignore yet. That is not just deception. That is adaptive deception. That is a bird updating its lying strategy in response to an audience that's getting wise to it. That is one standard deviation away from what a con artist does. Great apes are capable of even more sophisticated deception. Chimpanzees have been observed hiding food from dominant members of their group, pretending not to know where food is when a dominant male is watching, and even leading rivals away from food sources before doubling back to get them. These are intentional acts of misdirection. They require theory of mind. They require the chimp to model what the other chimp believes and to act on that model strategically. So animal deception exists. Cognitive animal deception exists. But there's still a gap between a chimp strategically misleading another chimp about food and a human constructing a detailed false narrative with consistent internal logic that holds up across multiple conversations over several days. The question is where that gap opens up and when our ancestors crossed it. Around 70,000 years ago, something happens in the human story that archaeologists and anthropologists have spent decades arguing about, but broadly agree on in its broad strokes. Something shifts in what human beings can do. Before this period, the archaeological record is relatively static. Tools are functional but not particularly creative. There's not much evidence of art, of symbolic thinking, of the kind of flexible problem-solving that characterizes modern human behavior. And then, relatively suddenly in archaeological terms, things change. Cave paintings appear. Elaborate burials with grave goods. Jewelry. Long-distance trade of materials that have no practical value but clearly carry symbolic meaning. Musical instruments. Figurines. Evidence of planning and coordination across larger social groups. Some researchers call this the cognitive revolution. Others push back on the term, arguing it was more gradual than the word revolution implies. But the broad point stands. At some point our ancestors developed the full suite of cognitive abilities that make modern humans. Language. Symbolic thought. The ability to imagine things that don't exist. The ability to represent the past and the future and to share those representations with other people. And here's the thing about that suite of abilities. Every single one of them is also required for lying. Language, you need it. Symbolic thought, you need it. The ability to imagine things that don't exist, that is literally the definition of a lie. The representation of a false state of affairs. The ability to share those representations convincingly, that's delivery. The moment our ancestors developed full language and theory of mind sophisticated enough for symbolic culture, they also, necessarily, simultaneously, developed the capacity for sophisticated deception. You cannot have one without the other. The cognitive hardware runs both programs. Which means the first human lie probably happened somewhere in the same window as the first human story. The first human art. The first human religion. The first time someone said something to someone else that wasn't just a grunt pointing at a predator but an actual representation of a state of affairs. Some of those representations were true. Some were not. And the ones that were not, that was the beginning. Here's the part of this story that nobody wants to hear but the evidence points toward pretty strongly. Lying wasn't a flaw in human social development. It may have been a feature. Let me explain that carefully because it sounds worse than it is. Humans evolved in groups. Small, tight, highly interdependent groups where cooperation was the difference between surviving the winter and not. And cooperation in those groups required something very specific: social harmony. The ability for 30 or 40 or 100 people to live and work in close proximity without constant conflict destroying the group from the inside. And here's what pure radical honesty does to a group. It destroys it. If every person in your group expressed every negative thought about every other person without filter, if every competition for status was played completely openly, if every resentment and jealousy and fear were stated plainly, you would have constant conflict. You would have fracture. You would have people leaving or being driven out or being killed. Small social lies, the kind developmental psychologists call prosocial lies, are social lubricant. They are the grease that lets the machine of human cooperation run without grinding itself to pieces. Your hair looks great. The food was delicious. I'm fine. I'm not angry. It was no trouble at all. None of these are true necessarily. All of them serve a function. They maintain relationships. They protect egos. They smooth over the 1,000 small frictions of living in close proximity with other humans. Developmental psychologists have studied when children develop the ability to lie prosocially, to produce false but socially functional statements. And the answer is around age 4. 4 years old. The moment a child can successfully suppress that gift was terrible, and replace it with thank you I love it, is considered a developmental milestone. A sign of growing cognitive sophistication and social awareness. We literally celebrate children learning to lie politely. Think about what that means. Now scale that up to early human groups. The individuals who could navigate social complexity with tact, who could manage status conflicts without open confrontation, who could maintain alliances through strategic ambiguity, those individuals were valuable. They kept groups together. They prevented conflicts that would fracture the group and leave everyone more vulnerable. The ability to lie may have been selected for, not the destructive kind, not fraud and manipulation, but the lubricating kind. The kind that makes it possible for humans to live with each other without killing each other every other Tuesday. But here's where it goes wrong. Because the same cognitive capacity that enables a polite social lie enables every other kind of lie as well. You cannot selectively evolve the capacity for gentle prosocial deception while blocking the capacity for strategic, self-serving, large-scale fraud. The hardware doesn't work that way. It's the same hardware. As human groups grew larger, as anonymous societies replaced the small tight-knit bands where everyone knew everyone, lying scaled with them. In a group of 30 people where you'll see everyone every day for the rest of your life, your reputation is everything. Being known as a liar is catastrophic. The social cost is immediate, visible, and permanent. But in a city of 100,000 strangers, the calculus changes. You might never see this person again. They don't know your reputation. The feedback loop that punished lying in small groups breaks down at scale. And once you have writing, once you can create false permanent records, the possibilities expand again. False accounts, false histories, false claims to land or status or divine authority. Some of the oldest written documents we have are commercial records, transactions, inventories, debts, and archaeologists have found evidence of fraud in some of the oldest commercial records ever discovered. People were faking accounts in ancient Mesopotamia. They were lying in writing within what appears to be centuries of inventing writing. The technology of record keeping and the technology of falsifying records developed essentially in parallel, as they always do. And then there is the grandest scale of all. The lies told not to one person but to millions. The political lie, the propaganda, the constructed narrative designed not to manage one social relationship but to shape the beliefs of an entire population. That is the same cognitive machinery, the same theory of mind, the same ability to model what others believe and to craft a message that will alter those beliefs, just deployed at a scale that would be unrecognizable to the small group of early humans who first developed these capacities sitting around a fire, managing the delicate social ecosystem of their band. The first lie was probably small, probably social, probably cost almost nothing and served a real function. What it set in motion is still playing out. So when did ancient humans first start lying? The honest answer, and there's something appropriate about trying to be honest here, is we don't know exactly. We can't point to a date, a place, a first liar. They didn't leave a record. Lies, by nature, don't fossilize. What we can say is that the capacity for lying is inseparable from the capacity for language, for symbolic thought, for theory of mind. That it emerged with the cognitive revolution that made us fully human. And that it has been part of our social toolkit from almost the moment we became the kind of creatures who could use social toolkits at all. It almost certainly started small. Someone in a small group on the African savannah said something that wasn't quite true. Maybe to avoid conflict. Maybe to protect themselves. Maybe just to see if they could get away with it. And they did. And they filed that away. And somewhere along the way, the same ability that let a person say, "I'm fine," when they weren't also let them say, "I saw 10 deer at the river," when they saw none, or "I was here all night," when they weren't, or "the gods told me this land belongs to me," when the gods said nothing of the sort. The same brain. The same capacity. 100 different uses, ranging from keeping the peace over dinner to rewriting history. And back to you. Sitting across from whoever you're sitting across from. The small lie you told earlier today. The one that came out smooth and automatic without you even deciding to tell it. That wasn't a moral failure. That was 100,000 years of cognitive evolution running exactly as designed. The question, the one that's actually yours to answer, is what you do with the rest of it.